Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is the Paddy Power, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.
Hello and welcome to this Cheltenham Ante Postcast. I'm Maddie Plell, joined in the studio by Stuart Riley. Great to have you here, Stu. We've also got Tom Siegel, Pricewise, joining us, and Darren Hughes from Paddy Power as well. In this week's episode, we're going to look at the Ryanair, the Supreme and the Ballymore races that have produced some of the most exciting Cheltenham winners in recent years. Sure to be a great show. Let's get cracking then. First up, the Ryanair is the race we're going to look at. Darren, can we go to you for a full show of prices?
You sure can, Maddie, yeah. And all these prices are non-runner, no bet on this race from Paddy Power. So Min heads up our market at 7-2. Foot Pad and waiting patiently are 5-1. Rodon, 7-1. Road to Respect and Unda So are 7-1. Album Photo and Kenboy are 8-1. Monolly and Politolog are 8-1 as well, and so is Top Knot, and we are 10 bar.
Excellent. Now, Tom, we often talk about these races. The same thing occurs with the Supreme and the Ballymore. Obviously, these horses in the Ryanair have different options. You know, they could go to the Champion Chase, they could go to the Gold Cup. But let's start off with Min, who is the anti-post favourite with a lot of different bookies. Tipped up last week, the Champion Chase. You don't think he's going to run here, and you wouldn't like him for it anyway, do you?
Look, he's the best horse in the race, Maddie, by quite some considerable margin. I think he's probably the second best chaser in training, if truth be told. I love him. I think he's really, really good. But he's keen. He's far too keen for me. He never really settles. Now, I suppose Ruby might get on him and put him to sleep out the back. And, you know, if he could come with one sort of sweeping run, then yes, of course he can win. But I think they're going to go bonkers in this race. I think they're going to go really hard. It's going to be a test of stamina. And I personally don't see Min staying up the hill, given the way he races. So therefore, I'm keen to take him on. I'd much rather see him in the Champion Chase. I get that Altior's better than him, and that he'll probably finish second there again. But you got to keep cracking away. I think he's I know we're doing this. What is it? 50 greatest 2-milers in history in the paper at the moment, and I think Min would be in there. I really do. I think he'd be one of the top 50 I've seen. But he's never going to get the recognition he deserves because he's in the same era as Altior. So I'd give him another crack. You never know. Altior could fall. Something could happen. So I'd give him another crack at the Champion Chase. But look, I get it. He's won over 2.5. He won the John Durkan last time. I understand why they want to maybe have a crack at this. Personally, I don't think it's the right race.
OK, Darren, I know you're in agreement. So Stu, I'll go over to you. Min, are you with him or against him?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Tom said. I can't see him turning up here.
OK, nice and simple. We'll move on then to Waiting Patiently, a horse who's really not had things go his way from being brought down in the King George. They're saying they might go for the Irish Gold Cup. Be very interesting to see him turn up there. Stu, a horse with a lot of ability, but we need to now see him really deliver.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit harsh. Like, he's won a good number of races in a row. He had one unseat last time in the King George, which, let's be honest, was completely not his fault. No. Bristol de Mai went legless in front of him and he had absolutely nowhere to go. I think he's a very classy horse and I would like to see him turn up here. There's a history of these horses who've sort of gone down the King George route, stepping back to the Ryanair. I'm thinking the likes of Q-Card, Don Cossack, Vorta, and you know, he is in that mould. There aren't many horses in this race that you think are crying out for 2.5 miles and would be capable of going off favourite or joint favourite for a King George. He's absolutely got the class for this race, and the trip, from everything that Ruth Jefferson said so far, I think this is the way they're leaning. So yeah, I'm very interested in him.
Yeah, Tom, again, you know, you're saying that you don't think he might not run at Cheltenham if he runs in Ireland, but he does strike me as one of the classiest horses in this race. We just really need to see him take it up to that next level now. It'd be great to see him out again soon.
Well, I fully agree with what Stu said there. I think he's at that level. I think that run at Ascot when he beat Q-Card was scintillating. I mean, that's as good as you get, really, over 2.5 miles. Just the thing with him is that they will not go on. They will not run him at Cheltenham if the ground's good. It's the first day, isn't it, on the new course, or the old course, whichever one it is. The new course, I think, is on the Thursday, and the ground tends to be a little bit quicker on that course than the other course. I'd just be slightly concerned about him even turning. If he does turn up, I fully agree with Stuart. I think he's a really, really top class horse that's done absolutely nothing wrong, and you know, he's as Stu was saying there, we're talking about a race where loads of them might not turn up, or loads of them are going to be doing things that they're not used to doing, i.e. dropping up, going up in trip, dropping down in tip. I think this trip and this race is tailor-made for Waiting Patiently. we just never see him, do we? I mean, if he goes to Ireland, it's hard to back. I mean, we're doing an anti-post preview here. Can you back him anti-post? I suppose non-runner, no bet with Paddy there. You could maybe have a crack at him, but I think it's I wouldn't be sure he'd even run.
Okay, Darren, what about you?
He's an extremely frustrating horse as far as I'm concerned. He obviously is talented, but you can't keep wrapping these horses in cotton wool. You're going to ruin their legacy. The horses are there to run. I understand welfare is massively important and you don't want to put the horse at risk, but this crack at wrapping them up and run them once or twice a year, it's doing nobody any favours, much less the horse. I'm going to play devil's advocate as well. I think there is a certain amount of windiness to his form. If you look back, he beat Q Card over 2.5 miles when Q Card was way past his best. Before that, he beat Art Moresque, who isn't a top-class horse. Bellamy picked on, fine. And then he beat Politolog by a length and a half over 2.5 miles. And Politolog is a windy enough stayer as well. Not saying he's not good. I think he is classy. But there's too many question marks about him for me to be backing him with 5-1 anyway.
Okay, and what about Footpad? Another horse with lots of question marks to his name. Is this the most likely race he's going to run in, Stu?
Again, I think they'll go Champion Chase with him. I think at the start of the season they had him down for the Champion Chase, and I know Willie Mullins is one to change his mind. He isn't someone who sets his plans in stone, and he's not for changing. But I just think this time last year they thought Footpad was really top class and up to serving it up to Altior. He's not done anything this year to suggest that, but Willie's had
excuses, hasn't he?
Absolutely, Willie's had an interesting season as well, hasn't he? He's never quite clicked into full operating mode. So yeah, I think they'll go Champion Chase, and then they might step him up after that.
Okay, well, just looking down the list we've got here, Road to Respect, Kenboy, we're going to assume that they're going to go to the Gold Cup. What about Underso, Tom? Won the race before. Is he on your radar for the race again?
Well, he's got to be. I'm just going back to Footpad there. I agree with Stu there. I think the owners have so many options in this race that they'll probably end up going for the Champion Chase. I also think he's had such a bad preparation. I'm not even sure he's going to make it to the Dublin Chase, that whether they'd want to go 2.5 miles on the first run back, for sort of first proper run of the season, I'd be surprised. So my guess is he won't run. As for Underso, I'm sure he will run. I'm sure that's the one that he's won it. He was second last year. I would, what is he now? 10, 11 now? I'm always wanting to take on 11-year-olds in most, is he 10 or 11? I can't remember. But whatever how old he is, he's getting on a bit. And I always want to take on horses like that. I think he'll run his race again. His form this year is as good as it's ever been. Do I think he'll win the Ryanair? No, I don't.
Okay, looking a bit further down then, who do you think could be a bit of value at this stage? You've got Politolog, another who's stepping back after he sort of failed to stay in the King George. Monolly, I know, is a horse that a lot of people are quite keen on, thinking that he just doesn't quite stay 3 miles. Then we've got Top Notch, as you mentioned, Simon Munir and Isaac Swade, one that could well go to the race. Tom?
Me? Yeah, me. Well, all those. I think Monolly's quite an interesting horse. It's not a horse I've got a massive amount of time for, Monolly. I just never think he finds as much as it looks likely. Believe it or not, everyone keeps telling me he's £6 below or £10 below. I think Top Notch will run really well. I just think he's a really solid, good horse. I think he was really unlucky not to win the GALT in his year. He missed the second last and was closing down on York Hill at the line. He had Disco. It was Politolog. It was a really good race that year. York Hill was in good form at the time, and I just think he's rock solid. I thought he was really good at Kempton the other day. He might be little bit below top class, but he's as good as Balco de Flo, who won it by miles last year. I just think at around whatever Darren said there, the double figure price, I thought he'd run well. And then you got all those sort of handicappers. There was ASO's a horse I'm very interested in, who won that big handicap off top weight the other day. I think that form's pretty good. He beat Happy Diva very easily. She went and beat Magical Life at Huntingdon in the week. I think he's a really good jumper. He was third in the race before. I think he's better than he is now. So at a big price, he'd go well. And the one from left field is the horse that ran on Saturday, Janica. I'm a massive fan of his. I thought he ran an absolute blinder on Saturday. Never, apart from Frodon, I don't think I've ever seen a horse jump around Cheltenham as well as Cyril du Luc did. And just things didn't go right for him that day on Saturday. He was a bit keen. He got trapped wide. He missed a couple of fences. To run that horse down and nearly beat him and, still keep sticking on to the end. I thought that was a really, really top-notch effort myself. See what I did there? Top-notch? See how I did that? And I think him at 33 to 1 or whatever price Darren said there, I think he could run well, because I don't think there's much, if you were to say to me, are these horses Grade 1 winners? top class. Could they take on the Gold Cup horses and Champion Chase horses? Probably not. But sometimes the Ryanair falls to horses like this, as we saw last year. And those would be the 3 that would be on my list at the moment.
Okay, fabulous. Before we sort of consolidate your selections with the best bets, Stu, I'll go to you. Any others you want to mention?
Yeah, I'd give a slight mention to Balca du Flo, who won the race last year. Shattered Love, for the same connections, obviously ran an absolute cracker in the JLT, which is sort of the novice equivalent of this race. One horse who I'd like to see him again, and I don't know if we will, but Fox Norton, obviously a half-decent comeback behind Altior. As Tom said there, this race can be for the in-between horses, but Fox Norton would very much be a proven Grade 1 horse who is up to mixing it with the very best. So I would love to see him again. They did mention they could go for the Game Spirit. I think they've been put off 2 miles, and this is the race they're looking at. If they could maybe run in the Ascot Chase, something like that, I would love to see him again, because obviously when you run behind a horse like Altior and, you're never really on terms, it's very hard to know what to make of the form. But he is one that catches my eye, because I'm looking down the betting and I'm thinking, well, there isn't really a nailed-on Grade 1 performer a bit further, except for him. He jumps out at you. He
does, and obviously nearly a Champion Chase winner himself. So, as you say, he's got that proven form. Darren, final word from you before we consolidate down your choices.
Sure, yes. I might just touch on Footpad Noon so if I can.
Of course you can.
For one quick sec. So I actually think Footpad is going to go to the Champion Chase. Munir and Suede have never been afraid to run their own horses against each other. They'll run Footpad against L'Oreal, no problem at all. I wasn't that upset with his run at Christmas. I think if he ran that race 10 times, he'd win at 9. It was just a freak thing that happened, and I wouldn't be upset about it. So I think he is at least as good, if not better than ever. His run behind Altior, I made that to be a career best at Sandown earlier on the year. And most interestingly of all, he's the one we've seen for money for the 2 mile chase this weekend at the Dublin Racing Festival. So that must be his warmer-upper before Cheltenham. I think everyone knows that 2.5 miles isn't his premium. His ideal conditions are 2 miles on soft ground, but class will get him through at this distance. So I suppose moving on from them two, then there's the 2 that I really like for the race, or 2 a bit further down. And one of them is Charbel. I know Top Notch has beaten him already this year, but that race was an absolute nightmare. Speradek just ruined it by going off stupid pace up front. Charbel needs to, I think he kind of needs to go out in front himself, get into his own rhythm. And obviously that isn't guaranteed here, but I think the stiff track here is going to suit him really, really well. The further he goes, the better he is. I think at 21 in a race where a lot of the top of the market are not going to run, that value, especially non-runner, no bet. And then the other one I really like is Baxon. He was an early faller in the Gold Cup last year, and it's interesting that he hasn't got an entry there this year. It's just the Ryanair for him. His return over hurdles this year was quite good. The only worry is that his best form is on a softer surface, though he actually has one on good ground. He's only run over fences 6 times, so he's relatively unexposed. He's fallen twice and he won 3 times. So I think there's improvement to come from him, and they'd be the 2 further down the list I'd be interested in.
Fabulous, thanks very much. So now, before we move on, 1 winner and 1 other bet from each of you. That can be each way, lengths, without the favourite, etc. Stuart, you first.
For the winner, I'm going to keep it simple and play Waiting Patiently. I just think this race is one of those where I love betting in the Ryanair Ante-Post, because you get such great value, because you can stick a line through half of those in the top 5 in the betting, or top 10 in the betting. So it pays to be with a horse who is going to turn up, because they're going to shorten even without running, because everything else is going to come out. And if I'm playing one at a bigger price, St Calvados would be an each-way play. He's got form that puts him right up with some very good horses. Beat Footpad earlier this year, or well, technically last year, but earlier this season. He's a very good horse. Harry Whittington said after the Tingle Creek, that's proved he's not an out-and-out 2 miler. We need to start stepping him up in trip. This is the obvious race for him, and as long as he doesn't get into something silly for the lead like he did in the Arkle last year, then I could see him running a really, really big race. He's a talented horse, and he's quite young, so still progressing, and he's already shown a level of form that puts him up to this, so he would be an each-way fancy.
Okay, Tom, over to you.
Top notch, love him, think he's just underrated. I don't think he's ever done anything wrong in his life, and I think he'll run a massive race. And the other horse is Nicky Henderson's other one, Janica, who ran on Saturday. I think, just thought I was really impressed with him on Saturday. He's only a small little thing, but I think plenty more to come from him. So that'd be my two Nicky Hendersons.
Superb, Darren.
Charbel to win it and backs on each way. I think it's just the type of race where, as the lads have already said, a lot of the top of the market are going to come out. You know, horses that are likely to show up are going to end up shortening on the day. So to take Flyer, two of the big prices, the angle I'm going to take into the race, they are mine too.
So thank you all for your selections on the Ryanair Chase. Before we go for a break, it's competition time now. Racing Post are delighted to offer you the unmissable opportunity to visit two of the biggest yards in Ireland, those of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott. Two lucky winners and a guest each will be treated to an exclusive visit to the stables to see their formidable Cheltenham teams at close quarters and on the gallops. For more information and all the details on this competition, just visit racingpost.com/competition to enter.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new, fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to this Cheltenham Ante Postcast. We're going to look at the Supreme Novices Hurdle now. A market that's still, in a way, quite open. Darren, kick us off with the betting. Angel's Breath, I know he's been very popular. Is he still your favourite?
He is indeed, yes. So Angel's Breath are 11-2 favourite at the moment. Mr. Fisher and Vision Donaire are 10-1. Al Dancer is 12-1. Elixir de Newts is 12-1. Classical Dream is 12-1. Aramon and Champagne Platinum are 14s, and we are 16s bar.
OK, Darren, I'll stick with you first, then Angel's Breath. We've only seen him once when he won the Kennelgate at Ascot. He was really impressive. Does he strike you as the supreme winner?
Boringly enough, he actually does. And I think there's a strong argument that he could be considerably shorter than he is at the moment. If you look back at Supremes in the past few couple of years... I know
you got Paisley Park right last week, but you cannot tell me he should be shorter price, surely.
Look, I think what I mean to say is, if you look back at Supremes the last few years, in such an open year, like there's nothing that really stands out at the moment. I think his form is up there with the best. It mightn't be necessarily the best, but the improvement you can expect from him. I'm not saying he should be 9-4 or anything like that, but I do think he's definitely a fair price at a bare minimum at 11-2. I was really impressed with his debut. I was particularly impressed at how he finished his race out. Like he's scooted away, like he's not slow. You have to imagine there's going to be improvement from him.
Darren, I get you. I get it. On impression, you're right. He made a massive impression. But on form, I'm sorry, I cannot have you telling me that's good form. Seddon's been beaten off 130 in a handicap since, getting nearly a stone from a horse, Ballymore, that no one would fancy. The fourth horse, This Will Do Nicely, has been thrashed by a horse by 20 lengths next time. Champagne Court, who finished 5th. The form is just not there. Now, I get what you're saying. On impressions, he looked very good, and he could be very good. But surely he is priced up on what Nicky Henderson says about him rather than what he's done. He cost 85 grand as a offer of out of a bumper. He's not like anyone sitting there thinking this is the second coming when they bought him. If they had known what they know now, he'd be 10 times that amount. He clearly is just priced up on reputation, not on form.
Well, I'll put it this way, right? When you think back to Min and Mellon, I reckon Angel's Breath debut was a lot better than either Min or Mellon, and he's 5 times the price or 3 times the price they were after they made their debuts over Maiden Herd.
Yeah, but they weren't. But not now. They weren't. We're talking about an anti-post thing. Well, I'm quite happy for him to come out and win and be 7-4 on the day and win on the day. But we're talking about what he's done now. And I don't think he's done enough now. Stuart, what do you reckon?
I was going to say, we love a good debate on these anti-postcasts, Stu. Go on, give your side.
Yeah, I can't have him at the price. I think he's a decent enough horse, but I mean, he's run once. He was impressive enough.
We have so little evidence to go on, don't we?
It's that, but also there's an issue here in the the number of extremely good horses Nicky Henderson's got beat in the Supreme it's a very long list with some very talented horses on it. You look at the likes of Bouvedere and Sprinter Sacra. Nicky runs them in the wrong races as novices, and I'm coming round to the conclusion that it is deliberate. It's part of a longer term plan. It's not necessarily. I don't think Nicky minds about winning the Supreme.
He goes out and out to win the Supreme?
Yeah, I don't think it's everything about winning the Supreme for Nicky. I think it's about building a horse towards being a champion hurdle horse or a champion chase horse. And I mean, that would put me off as well. And Angel's Breath's done less at this stage than either of the other two I just mentioned. So yeah, I'm happy to leave him alone at the price. I'm not saying he won't win. It's Nicky Henderson, and he's a very good horse. Of course, he could turn up on the day and win, but I just can't. I can't have him personally.
Okay, that's a really interesting point there. Maybe more on Angel's Breath sort of as we get going through them, but let's talk about another Nicky Henderson inmate, Mr. Fisher. Tom, I know you're quite keen on him. I wasn't that impressed with him at Haydock last time. I thought his jumping was pretty scrappy and I just wasn't that impressed. What am I missing out on?
Maybe nothing. I don't know. I mean, look, before I'm castigated as saying Angel's Breath can't win. Of course he can win. I just think he's a bad price at the moment. For me, Mr. Fisher's done a hell of a lot more. I think the form of his Kempton win is miles ahead of what Angel's Breath did on his debut thing. But as we all know, Henderson obviously thinks the other way. They obviously think Angel's Breath is better. So that's why we've got the divergence in price. I wasn't upset with him at Haydock at all. I thought he came there to win. I thought he was giving them weight. I think that might be quite a good race. I just think there was nothing wrong with it. He made a bit of a mistake at the second last, but he's a novice. He's only run, twice, 3 times over fences. Lots of horses make mistakes over hurdles. Bouvardere made a mistake the other day. I mean, it's not the be-all and end-all. I think he makes a good shape. I think he's just got better form than Angel's Breath at this stage of the Henderson 2. Could be completely wrong. But what we're doing now is doing an anti-post now. You know, as I keep saying, we're not doing it on the day when there's loads more information. But as we speak now, I think Mr. Fisher's done more than Angel's Breath. And that's why I would be in his camp at this stage.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Stu, Mr. Fisher, do you agree with Tom that his form's better than Angel's Breath?
Yeah, I think it is. I think a lot of these have better form, mainly because they've done more, so they've proven more.
Yeah.
You know, Angel's Breath absolutely is open to any amount of improvement, but so are a lot of these, you know. You know, at the end of the day, Mr. Fisher's not run too many times either. He's one of those horses that he's a bit workmanlike in the way he does it, and he doesn't really knock your eyes out, but, you know, the more I think about it, the more you look at Mr. Fisher as a horse and the way he runs, that sort of workman-like grinding style on these flat tracks, maybe that's not what he's suited to. And you put that uphill finish at the end of a really hard-run race, and I could absolutely see him doing his best work late on, and I'm not saying necessarily that he wins the race, but I could see him being a massive place play.
Yeah, he does sort of seem like he stays very strongly. Darren, over to you. Thoughts on Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, look, I want to just clarify here. In absolute terms, Mr. Fisher's form is definitely better than Angel's Breath. My angle into Angel's Breath was that I do think he's just going to improve. There's not a million miles between them as of now, and he's going to have more improvement in him. Mr. Fisher, I think he's been massively underappreciated so far. He's very solid. I thought he jumped really, really well at Kempton. Haydock, not so much. He was a bit scratchy, but I thought his jump around Kempton was mustard. I suppose my issues are that his runs have been on flat track so far. Cheltenham's going to be a different ball game for him. Not sure how strong the form of his last run was. I mean, like, right forecast gave him 6 lengths and he nearly ran out to turn him for back straight the second time round. And, you know, he still only just about beat him 2.5 lengths. Do think he's probably fair enough price at double digits, but wouldn't just be for me, but I can definitely see why you'd be fond of him.
Okay, now we're talking about how open this race is and how there could still be other things to happen and all the rest of it. If we want one horse who we can sort of rate the race around, I guess it could be Elixir de Nuts, who's probably done most of those that have been out. Won the Toll with Somerville Boy, won that race before winning it last year. Stu, is he just one of those that you think he's been out too soon? Again, a bit like Mr. Fisher, he's very workmanlike, so you want to find a superstar to take him on with?
No, I love him. I absolutely love Elixir de Nuts. Yeah, I think he's the sort of horse that, for whatever reason, is just being slightly overlooked in this. And, you know, like you've just said, he's probably got the strongest form of anything on paper coming into it. He's already a Grade 1 winner. He's already a course winner. Like, what is there not to like about this horse? He's got an incredibly game attitude. He's got
wonderfully.
A brilliant jumper, fantastic trainer. You know, he knows how to peak them for the big days. And yeah, absolutely, I could see him running a massive race. And without giving too much away, yeah, he's a horse I really like in this race.
Okay, the smile says it all. Tom, Elixir de Nuts, are you with him or against him?
He's not for me. He's not for me. I get what Stu says. Look, if he wins the Supreme, I'll be disappointed. Simply for the fact that I don't, you know, what I want from a Supreme winner is a horse that's going to run in next year's Champion Hurdle and me to be fancying it. And I cannot be one of those. I think it'll be a chaser next year. I think it'll be.
Who was the last Supreme winner that did that?
Well, there's a few. That's absolutely
Ballymore,
right. That's absolutely right. Well, Altior would have won about 14 Champion Hurdles if they bothered to run him in it. But I get that. But over the years, that's what I've wanted to see in my, a Duvan, who I would have thought would have gone very close in a champion hurdle. Do you see what I mean? Or those type of horses. What I'm looking for now. I get it. Mellon would be another example who got beat in it, but sort of nearly. That's the sort of horse I'm looking for. Last year we didn't really see it, and so that's why I'm not saying Elixir de Nuts can't win, because last year would be a very similar sort of race. We're really struggling to find an Irish horse of note at the moment. Now the Dublin Racing Festival might change all that, but at the moment we're looking at maiden winners from Ireland, or I think Amaron probably got the best form, but we're struggling to find a really top-notch 2-miler at this stage. So that's what brings Elixir de Nuts in. I'm not saying he can't win, and I fully get what Stu says there about his...
Is he not a value price?
No, I don't think he is, because I prefer Al Dancer's form.
Okay.
I much prefer Al Dancer's form myself. I think to me he should be favourite. That's the one I think should be favourite. I think he was in that form when he won that handicap. It was a very good time. He beat some good horses. Champagne City ran really well on Saturday in a race where he went far too soon. Not that few Fuise's come out and won since, and he gave them all weight as a novice, and he absolutely thrashed them. Now for me, he's got the best form. That's my reading of the form. So I think he should be favourite, personally.
Okay.
I think we're going to see him next in the Betfair hurdle. I think he's got a massive chance in that.
He'd need to be winning it, wouldn't he, for you to really like him?
Well, of course. If he's going to... Well, I don't know. If it's a bad year, he can come second or third and have a shot in the Supreme, I would imagine. It might not be that. We're struggling to find one. So that's where I go back to Darren's point about Angel's Breath, is that while I don't like him on form terms, I have no problems with him seeing him winning, because at the moment it's a bad race. Okay.
Well, we haven't spoke much about the Irish horses. You mentioned a couple there, but Vision D'Honneur, one of them, Classical Dream, Willie Mullins' Hope, and Aramon, who won the Grade 1 last time. Darren, we'll go over to you. Who's your pick of the Irish?
Jesus, yeah, we're kind of, unusually for us, we're kind of thin on the ground in novice hurdlers this year, for whatever reason. Touching a couple of them here. Vision D'Honneur, I can see the angle, but for me, he has an awful lot of improvement to do. I don't think he improved that much from his first run to his second. It was just a worse race. He's going by reputations. The horse he beat at Willie's is very good, but the 4th, 5th and 7th in that race weren't beaten all that far, and they have been beaten as far, if not further, in 4 maiden hurdles over the last couple of weeks. I have to respect Gordon, and if they say he's a good horse, then I'm assuming he is one. Like, Grade 1 entered before he set foot in a race course in Ireland, but I don't know, he has a lot of improvement to do, and I wouldn't like to be betting on that he will do it.
With the connections he's got, do you sort of see him as more of a long-term prospect then?
Yeah, I could see them not killing him to go and win a Supreme Novice. There's another Irish horse that I suppose I would be more interested in, and that's Classical Dream, who actually beat Vision D'Honneur on his first run, and we haven't seen him since. Form has obviously worked out with Vision D'Honneur going and winning. And what I really liked was his attitude, that like when the horse got to his court, he pulled out more and he ended up winning by 2.5 lengths. But he let them come to him and he kicked on again and kicked on again. The weird thing is, he's probably Willie's best chance for the Supreme, but we haven't heard a whole pile about him. Whereas normally Willie has a talking horse every year. This year isn't seem to be the case, but they'd be the two, I suppose, main contenders from Ireland as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, Animix was his talking horse, but he's let that down a little bit. Okay, we'll clarify the selections now. Then, Stu, a winner and another bet from you. I've got a feeling a grey horse of Colin Tizard's is going to be involved. Yeah,
Elixir de Nuts each way would be my main play in the race. The other horse that I'll put up as I just quite like him is Tornado Flyer, which is a Willie Mullins horse. Was 3rd in the Champion Bumper last year. Was meant to be the mount of Ruby Walsh until he got injured. Now, if you go back through Champion Bumpers past, Ruby Walsh always tends to be on the best of them. Everyone thinks it's Patrick that has first choice, but if you actually go back through previous years, Ruby's always on the best of them. And the fact that he was on Tornado Flyer, I thought was a bit of a pointer. He ran a great race that day, was a bit unlucky. You could arguably say he could have gone closer. And I mean, he's won a race and then pulled up very early the next time, so that's a bit of a concern. I'd want to see him again, but he's 25-1 with Paddy Power, and at that sort of price, he's got Cheltenham form. He's clearly classy, so he's worth a stab.
Give it a shot. Okay, Tom.
Al Dancer, another grey horse, is my number one choice at a big price. Thomas Darby for Ollie Murphy. He beat Elixir de Nuts at the start of the season. He's just the type of horse that I think, he reminds me of Minora, who won it for the Waitley's not long ago. He's the type of horse that I think is just going to be perfectly suited to the race. He's going to want a strong pace and he's going to finish. And I think him at 25 to 1 or 20 to 1 is a good each way play.
Yeah, he stays very well, doesn't he? Thomas Darby won the other day as well. Darren, over to you.
There's kind of one horse I fancy. We haven't even mentioned him, and that's Champagne Platinum for Nicky Henderson. Another great horse, actually. I couldn't have been more impressed by him at Newbury the last day. He is entered in the Ballymore, but Nicky's quote afterwards, he kind of said, look, does this horse even need 2.5 miles? Just the way he quickened up from the last, I think he's very, very good potentially. He's 14 to 1 for the Supreme, 16 to the Ballymore, as we'll touch on later, and he'd be one I'd be massively interested in. Look, seeing as I stuck up for Angel's Breath earlier on, I will put him up as well. The one I would be most interested in is Champagne Platinum. I'd be hoping he turns up here.
Matt, can I make one point before we go?
Of course you can.
We're
not going anywhere, Tom. We've got the Ballymore.
We've got the Ballymore to do yet. We've got to remember 4-year-olds can run in this. And I think there is every chance that we could see a horse like that one that won at Fakir Du Dairy or something like that parachute into this race, because it's not a great race. They have a massive chance. They get loads of weight. Joseph has got loads of juveniles. I can't believe they'll all run in the Triumph Hurdle. Something will come and run in this is my guess. And so bear in mind that come the day, we could be sitting here with a 4-year-old in there that has got a massive chance at the weights.
Any ideas at this stage? Any 4-year-olds that you just want?
Well, the one we saw on Saturday, I think, is a really, really nice horse. But if Sir Eric comes out and wins the Spring Juvenile in the Dublin Festival by miles, and Joseph and the team think that Fakir Du Dairy can't possibly beat Sir Eric, then he could easily move into this race.
Okay, that's a really, really good point. And on that note, we'll take another break. The Ballymore is next.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this Cheltenham Ante Postcast. The Ballymore is our next port of call. Now, Stu, before we begin, we're going to talk a lot about these Ante-Post podcasts flip-flopping between races. Often, sort of, Tom mentioned earlier with Champion Hurdle Hopes, he wants to win a Supreme, but they do often run in the Ballymore. You look at sort of Faheen and other horses like that. Why is it such a difficult decision, and why do we get sort of speedy horses running in the longer race?
The huge thing that makes the difference between the Supreme and the Neptune, and it's why an awful lot of horses end up in the wrong race, is the Supreme is actually run at a breakneck gallop from start to finish. And if you go through and do the sectionals on the 2 races in comparison, year after year, the Supreme is run much harder up until the 2nd to 3rd last. And obviously from then, because they've gone so hard, it's then a slower race from the 2nd or 3rd last to the line. The Neptune, or the Ballymore as it's now called, is a race where, because it's further, they tend to go a bit slower. There has been the odd exception. Willoughby Courtier, they went a really good gallop in the Ballymore, but generally they go slower in the Ballymore and they finish faster. So from the 3rd last to the finish line, the Ballymore field tends to cover that quicker than the Supreme field, which then isn't that much of a surprise when you go on to the following year. They're Champion Hurdle horses, and you've got the likes of the new one and Faheen, and Sam Crow, they were going to go down that route with it. The sort of race where actually you want a bit of speed for the staying race, and in the shorter race that everyone thinks is all about speed and you want a Champion Hurdle horse, it tends to be more Arkle horses that are then going on to be chasers over further, because you need that strength, you need that stamina, because it's run. You need the engine to be able to travel at that speed for so far, but they're really run at a strong pace. That's the Supreme generally, and therefore it puts much more emphasis on stamina, and the Ballymore much more suits a speedier horse. The issue from an anti-post perspective is actually all we need to do at the moment is find a horse that's going to turn up on the day. There's no point having a horse that would win the Ballymore if he ran in it, but they're going to run him in the Supreme. So that's the issue at this point. That is less of a factor at this stage. It's more of a factor on the day, but at the same time, it's a great angle at this stage if you can find one that fits that profile that's likely to turn up.
And do you think, you've said about how they go so fast in the Supreme, that maybe not ruins horses, but is a harder race on them longer term than the Ballymore because it's so attritional early on?
Well, I think you look at the Supreme and, you know, horses that have come out of it have done incredibly well throughout the rest of their career. You know, it has been a real stepping stone race, so I'm not sure it's particularly leaves a mark in any sense. It's but it plays very much to a skill set, the Supreme, and that's why you get horses like Bouvedere, like Sprinter Sacre, who are incredibly classy horses. I mean, I know Bouvedere was in Altior's year, so he was beaten by a better horse, but you know, Sprinter Sacre was beaten in the race. I think so was Q Card. Alpha Off that won it that year. That was a hell of a race that year, and you get horses come out of the Supreme and do very well, but actually they're not particularly suited to the test that the Supreme is. And so I don't really think the race leaves a mark, no, but I do think that the Supreme especially is a very specific skill set that's being tested.
Okay. Darren, let's go over to you and get a full running of all the horses in the Ballymore then.
Sure thing, yeah. So Champ is our favourite at 4-1. Battle Over Doyen is 9-2. Brewing Up a Storm is 12s. Birchdale is 14s. Beakstown is 16s. Champagne Platinum is 16s. Getaway Trump is 16s. And so is Jarvis Plate. And then we are 20s bar.
Excellent. Now, I know this is a very open race as well. Tom, we're going to try not to talk too much about the Supreme as we've already covered it, and this is about the Ballymore, but I really think Champ would have a good chance in the shorter race. I think he's got so much class, but it looks likely that this is the way he's going to go. Well,
yeah, they've obviously got Angel's Breath, Mr. Fisher, Champagne Platinum in the other race, haven't they? This is the race they'll go. They've run him in the Challow, haven't they? This is the one they've earmarked for him all the whole season. I think he's got a favourite's chance myself. I think he's done nothing wrong at all. I hate saying
classy,
that.
Isn't he?
He's just very good, isn't he? I think the form of the Challow will end up working out well. I think Brewing Up a Storm would have probably beaten Birchdale on Saturday. Do I want to back him at 4-1 now? No, I don't really, because there's so many more things that can happen. But is he the right favourite? Yeah, I think he is.
Okay, Stu, Champ, what's your analysis of him so far?
I mean, I think Champ Fools is a very good example of what I was just talking about. He's an incredibly classy horse, but as you said, I think he'd have a better chance in the Supreme. That sort of extra test on stamina will suit him. I think he'll be tapped for toe in this. He kind of is the sort of horse, I'm not comparing him to Denman, but I'm saying he's the sort of horse like Denman who will get beat in this race and turn out to be very good because he'll get done for a turn of foot. Nicanor obviously got the better of Denman, and I can see something doing Champ just because I actually think he's in this race because they see him as more of a staying type, and I personally see him getting done for a turn of foot when the race gets hot over those last few obstacles, and he may have the class to still win, but I want to be taking him on. He exactly fits the theory that I was talking about earlier.
Perfect, there we go then. Darren, Champ, does he win?
He's the right favourite, yeah. I don't know, I just don't really buy it with him. Like, his form is excellent on the face, but I'm not knocking it, but like, he won a handicap around Newbury, fair enough, won it well, he did it really well. That race, the last day, the grade 1 in Newbury, then the race afterwards, that was just like they crawled around and it was who could sprint quickest. That for me, that form is not reliable. You can't not have him favoured, but I wouldn't be taking 4-1 about him winning this. I just don't buy it with him so far.
Okay, and another horse that people are sort of wondering about form-wise is Battle Over Doyen. He was really impressive when he first came out, but what's he beaten?
That's a good question because I do think that the novices in Ireland aren't particularly good this year either, as I've already kind of said. For me, he'd be a horse that I actually wouldn't mind skipping Cheltenham with. I think he's very immature still and he's a big baby. He'd be one I wouldn't mind leaving at home, maybe run him at Punchestown if you really want to, and bring him back next year to go chasing. He clearly does have a big engine, but yeah, on the balance of form, Champ probably does have better form. He wouldn't be one I'd be mad in getting stuck into at 92.
Okay, Tom, and I know a lot of people are going to be jumping on the Battle Over Doyen bandwagon, but you think he's too short as well?
Don't like him at all. No, he's clearly, he's won every race he's been in, but I think the last time's form doesn't stack up at all. 2 Willie Mullins horses that were fancied against him ran no races at all. I think Tornado Fire was pulled up and Come With Me was just pulled its head off and never finished. So I just don't think that form is anywhere near good enough for him to be whatever price he is 9-2 or 5-1 or whatever Darren said there. So for me, at this stage, once again, look, it's the same. It's an argument. It's the same argument we'll have with Angel's Breath, and we'll have it in the Arkle, and we'll have it in all these races coming up. It's about prices at this stage, isn't it? I just don't want to back these horses at this sort of price when they've got so much to prove. Now, Battle of Doyen might come out and win at the Dublin Festival, and we think that 9-2 was a great price. And if you look down the winners of this, I think 7 of the last 8 have been shorter than what price Battler of the Doyen is now. So, it's a race that we tend to, as Stu pointed out, they tend to identify the right horse for this race. People tend to do that, and they tend to get it right quite a lot of the time. So he could be the one at this stage. He's done nothing like enough to be 9-2 or 5-1.
Okay, if we go further down the list, we've got Beakstown, who connections, they could run him, but they're very much sort of engineering him to be a better horse in the future. Getaway Trump, I think he's going to take a similar route to Angel's Breath and go to the Betfair Hurdle. Champagne Platinum, that's a horse Darren's already mentioned. Stu, just of those I've just mentioned there, which one would appeal most to you?
I mean, none of them really. I find this race, it's a very confusing race, because at the end of the day you're trying to find something that's going to turn up, and it's very difficult at this stage to know categorically what is going to. And
Birchdale, were you impressed with him? Brewing Up a Storm? What do you make of that run the weekend?
Birchdale and Brewing Up a Storm, I mean, I've done this before when Rock on Ruby and Bob's Worth ran in that race a good few years ago. I watched it, came out of the back of that and went, nah, can't have either of them. They're not good enough. And obviously both went on to win as novices at the festival and become 2 of the greatest horses in recent history at the festival. So at risk of repeating that mistake, I'm going to crab both of them again and say no, neither of them are going to win at the festival.
Okay, Tom, any thoughts on those that we've just mentioned?
I like Brewing Up a Storm a bit. If
he would have won, wouldn't he?
Well, I don't know. You never know with Barry Geraghty, do you? Sometimes you think he's going badly and then they pick up and take off. I don't know. I really don't know. My guess is he would have won, but I quite like him. I think he's a strong stayer. I think he's got, maybe doesn't have to make the running next time, but I think he's a horse going places. I'm a big fan of his trainer, Ollie Murphy. So he'd be one that could maybe hit the frame, but that's the boys say it. This of all the, if you take out Champ, I think the rest of them are, none of them have really done enough to be, considered as potential supreme novice winners. And if you go down, as I was saying, if you go down the list, that the good horses win this race. The top horses win this race, and at the moment, none of them have got anything like the solid enough credentials for me to say that they're going to be the next superstar.
Okay, so who would your sort of, if you have a strong fancy?
The one I've backed is an Irish horse, believe it or not, trained by Martin Brazel. He's owned by Ballymore, who sponsor the race. So the plan is definitely for him to run. He's a horse called City Island, who has won 3 on the trot. He beat a very good horse of Noel Meads, Valdier it's called, in a bumper. Then he went to Galway for his first ever run over hurdles, and he got disqualified afterwards for some irregularity, but he beat a horse called Get a Reason with who's gone on to be placed in a Grade 1. He also, Debouché was in there. We know he ran in the Supreme last year and was beaten about the same distance. And then he came out back at 2 miles in a Leopardstown maiden hurdle because he could still run in the maiden hurdle. And he won incredibly easy, beating Dallas de Picton, who's gone on and won by 10 lengths since. Now, on form, he's the same as lots of others. But I just get the impression that at a big price, he's the type of horse that could run really well. I'm a big fan of his trainer. Did me a good turn with number 6 Valverde a long time ago. But I think he's a good horse. He's bred to stay. He's unbeaten over hurdles if you take out the disqualification. And he's just got the same sort of credentials as lots. I just think there's something about him that he's going to take a big step forward when he gets up in trip in a better race. And so at a big price, he'd be one I'd be interested in at the moment in a race that you could make a similar case for loads of them.
Okay, Darren, any sort of flying under the radar that you want to note?
No, just a couple of ones you mentioned there. For me, Brewing Up a Storm is the one that stands out a mile. I think he's probably the unluckiest horse in the field. Like, he's never had it go his way. Like, he had to make his own running on his hurdling debut up in Huntington. Went to Newbury and was held up out the back in a race where they crawled round. And he had to go and make his own run then again on Saturday. The Exchange had him, I think, was it 5s on to win, jumping the last before he fell. So, I mean, the market thought he was definitely going to go and win. And I was watching the race. I thought he was going to win reasonably handy as well. And I really liked how himself and Birchdale pulled away from you know, the likes of Jarvis Plate and that, who aren't maybe top class, but who are decent horses in their own right.
Yeah.
He's the one that really stands out for me. I don't think Champ and him, he shouldn't be 3 times the price of Champ.
Okay.
On Tom City Island, I can definitely see the angle into him. The form has been let down slightly by Raya Time, who was third in the maiden hurdle. He won and wasn't disqualified from, but I can definitely see the angle. The only slight worry for me is he has no entry this weekend in the Dublin Racing Festival, so He's
running at Nace on the 9th, Aaron. I know that for a fact. He's running there for in a for auction, whatever, an auction, and that is his prep for Cheltenham. He's definitely running at Nace on the 9th.
Yeah, happy days if that's the case, and that's 100%. Because you know yourself, you would just like to see him again before going to the festival. Yeah, they'd be probably the two that stand out. Beaktown as well, but he's another one I wouldn't mind skipping this year with, and coming back next year when he's a bit older and a bit wiser.
Sounds very much like Connections want to do that as well. We'll clarify the selections now. Stu, a winner and one other bet.
I'm not going to go for a winner. I'm just going to go for a outsider. And it's a bit of a plea to Nick Gifford to please run Did They Leave You Out To in this and not the Supreme. I think they probably will go for the Supreme because it's a JP horse. Obviously, he's got Champ for this. So Nick Gifford went down the Supreme route with Straw Bear. Obviously came up just short with him, was beaten by Noland, which again, you look at how those two horses played out, which one became the champion hurdle horse, which one ended up going up in trip. This is the race for him. I was blown away way back when he won on debut at Lingfield in that all-weather bumper. The turn of foot this horse has makes him tailor-made for this race. And please, Nick Gifford, please run him in this race because I think he's got a cracking chance.
What happened at Kempton last time? Just not himself, surely.
Yeah, I think you can put a line through that. That just wasn't him, was it? I mean, the form with purely through Thomas Darby, you know he's not run up to the form he's capable of. He had that horse behind time before. Even at the weights, it wasn't. They weren't where they should be, so something was clearly amiss there. Hopefully they can put that right, and yeah, I want to see him here. Okay,
Tom, 2 bets, 1 winner and 1 other from you.
I'm by no means as negative about the boys are about Champ. I do think he's a good horse, and I think he'll be hard to beat. But at the moment, I'm all over City Island. I just like the way he goes about things. I like the way he jumps. The twice he's run over hurdles, his jumping has been brilliant. Just love the way he attacks his hurdles, quickens into them and gets lengths over his rivals. So for me, it's I'm hoping City Island comes out on Nace on next month and dots up, and I'm on a bit of a runner at a big price.
Brilliant. We'll hope to see him then. Darren, over to you finally.
Sure. So, yeah, Brewing Up a Storm, as I said, would be the one I'd be extremely interested in. And if I was forced to have a second bet, I'd give Danny Kerwin another chance. Yeah, look, I know he's going to be a tip horse for everybody, but the reputation he has, I'd give him maybe another chance at a big enough price.
Okay, brilliant. So we've come to the end of today's show. Thanks for watching or listening to us. Don't forget we have our regular racing postcast this week. We did that yesterday. We looked at the weekend action from Tuesday on trials, from Cheltenham on Trials Day, and Friday. Be looking out for Bruce and the team as they're going to be running through the cards at Sandown, Musselburgh and Wetherby. Bruce is back with the golf and football postcasts on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and we'll also have 2 extra shows this week. It's a busy one covering the Six Nations and the Super Bowl. So until then, best of luck with your betting and goodbye.
Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather or the gym.